Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as J-Monster. I want to thank you for joining me for another 30 Days Reforged replay battle. Today I've got another fight on 0.96.1. As I promised, it is going to be a scenario battle. This is drawn from, I believe, the RP campaign that's going on the Reforged Discord. And it is going to be featuring, I think, 2-3 armies of Linden versus at least 3 or 4 armies from the Misty Mountains. So it's going to be a pretty grueling epic siege with a lot of numbers at the disposal of the attackers. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and let's take a look at the army comps, then we can jump into this battle. Let's see, the first army we're going to look at today is naturally going to be one of Lindon. I think they're all kind of mixed in with one another. So it will be hard to tell things apart, so we're just going to kind of briefly go over things as we see them. Got some 4 Lindon archers there, a lot of 4 Lindon marines, so some javelin and spear hybrid units. Got a unit of wardens of Harlandon, who are a spear cavalry / bow unit. Linden being particularly well known for its hybrid units. Got an Oldoran guard, a lot of 4 Lindon pikemen. Got some more wardens of Harlandon, tons of wardens of Harlandon. You can see all that cavalry there. A bunch of Mithlon lancers as well. More 4 Lindon marines. Just a very all-round impressive force from the elves of Linden. Maybe 1 or 2 units of wardens of Elastirian mixed in there as well. An Oldoran guard. More wardens of Harlandon. 4 Lindon marines. The kind of mainstay of Linden. Linden doesn't have an exactly gigantic roster at the moment. They will be getting some additions in the future. I'm not sure what they will be yet. But yeah, so a lot of their armies are going to be composed of pretty well the same, like 4 or 5 kinds of units. So some Mithlon lancers, 4 Lindon marines, get more 4 Lindon marines, a bunch of 4 Lindon archers, more 4 Lindon archers. Got some wardens of Elastirian up there on the gatehouse. So 3 units of them so far. 2 units, yes, another 2 units of 4 Lindon archers. Another one over there on the far wall. And what do you know? A 4th unit of wardens of Elastirian. It could be extremely useful against the Misty Mountains roster. Yet more archers. Actually, those are 4 Lindon marines. 2 units of 4 Lindon marines there, and another unit of 4 Lindon marines. Oh, I can't wait to see how this battle goes down. That's a lot of stuff from the elves of Imladris, and I don't think anyone would have sent me a battle that is a total blowout, like a 30% to 100% kind of battle. So I'm really expecting the Misty Mountains to bring some seriously badass armies to match those brought by the elves of Lindon. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at what the attackers are bringing to the battle today. So the first Misty Mountains army we're going to look at today is being commanded by Dildo Baggins. All right then, he's got some Warg Riders. He's got a ballista there as well. Of course, you need a little bit of siege equipment in this kind of scenario. A couple units of Goblin archers, a bunch of heavy Goblin spears. Actually, is that like 5 units of heavy Goblin spears? 6 maybe? 5 or 6 units of heavy Goblin spears, very strong. A couple units of Black Uruks of the Mountain. Now with more Misty Mountains flavor. More heavy Goblin spears. Wow, so 6 units so far. White Uruk Fearmongers. A couple units of White Uruk Fearmongers. Yeah, these are definitely RP armies. You know, Blackback Mountain Berserkers, some really high tier forces. 2 units of Warg Riders. A couple units of heavy Goblin crossbows. All around a very, very frightening army for Linden to deal with. Although it is worth saying that there are a lot of units that would be vulnerable to the Rangers, the Wardens of Elastirian that Linden have brought to the field today. Let's see what we got over here. Very bunched up army. It looks like this one's commanded by Mob Lucky Hussar, and yeah, not a lot of deployment room here. I guess there's a little bit of work to do with the deployment zone for CARN-DûM, and he's got a seething mass of Ironshot Orcs. I'm sure there's lots of spears in there. I can see some Fearmongers, some Berserkers as well, 2 HP units, with not a lot of armor, but they are armor piercing. Black Uruks, Goblin Archers, some Goblin Halberds probably. Definitely Goblin Halberds. Crossbows I think I see in there as well. I think we're going to see some very similar armies from the Misty Mountains today. The more I see of their armies, the more I get really excited for this battle. We got it in front here, a couple units of heavy Goblin Archers. This one being commanded by Max Starling. So yeah, 2 units of the Goblin Archers there. I assume we're going to see a ton of Halberds and heavy Goblin Spears. You know, Ballista, Warg Riders, bunch of Goblin Spears here. 1, 2, 3 units of heavy Goblin Spears. More Goblin Crossbows. Yet more Spears. Warg Riders, Black Uruks, White Fearmongers or White Uruk Fearmongers. There we go. White Uruk Fearmongers. A couple units of Black Uruks. And then yet more heavy Goblin Spears. And then over here, we have the final Misty Mountains army being commanded by Tundra's Fox. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4 units of Goblin Archers, 1 unit of Ballista, a bunch of Heavy Goblin Spears, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7, is that what I'm seeing there? Yep, 7 units of the Heavy Goblin Spears, 2 units of White Uruk Fearmongers, a couple units of Heavy Goblin Crossbows, and 3 units of Wargs. A little bit more, I would say, support-oriented with the large numbers of skirmishers and the cavalry as well. These all Warg Riders? There's skirmishers in there as well. Nope, just Warg Riders. Not a lot of trolls that I've seen on the battlefield today, so that's going to be interesting. So not a lot of pushing tactics that are going to go into this battle. But yeah, those are for the army comps. Let's go ahead, jump into the replay. Hope you guys enjoy it. So now that the gates have opened, we are entering into that bombardment phase, which is probably going to take a little while. So I might fast forward through this, but just to give you guys a sense of the passing of time, got some ballista batteries here, I presume from every single faction, opening up on the walls here. Ooh, man, that frame rate. This is a really, really large battle, especially with 4 Misty Mountains armies. That right there is like... it's like 16,000 enemy troops on their own, generally, given the amount of numbers that they tend to have. So it's pretty crazy. So I'm going to fast forward through the bombardment phase just a little bit, and I will see you guys in just a few moments. Well, it appears that we didn't have to wait all as long as I thought we would. Got a lot of Heavy Goblin Archers here moving forward under Startling, and then on one of the opposite bridges, we've got a Ram unit being manned by some Heavy Goblin Spears who have come under some pretty severe pressure from the Elven Archers up there on the wall, in addition to the towers, which are raining down fire arrows on them. That being said, the 8 or so shield value plus the 6 armor of the Heavy Goblin Spears will help them stand up to this, in addition to their loose formation for quite a while. So this is actually ending up being not the greatest use of that Elven ammunition, surprisingly enough, owing mostly to the high defensive value of these Spearmen. Yeah, popping back on over to the other bridge here. Just a big skirmish fight. Heavy Goblin Archers, huge number of them, raining arrows over the top of the battlements, which is surely going to claim many of the lives of these fairly lightly armored Elven Bowmen here under Mech Thorn. Yeah, definitely in this kind of fight, they are severely outgunned. Even with the positioning advantage, the sheer number and the ability of the Heavy Goblin Archers to spread out is actually going to help them get more bang for their buck out of those lower tier archers than these deadly accurate but lightly armored ones. However, it seems that Lindon has a solution to this problem. Mython Lancers sallying out of the gates. They're going to take a nice bite out of Starling's Goblin Archers. There's really not any support nearby. The best chance I think he has is to focus fire the 2 remaining Goblin companies who are, well, 1 now, who were previously unengaged, and to try and shoot these Mython Lancers to pieces. The Mython Lancers, but Lindon in general, have decent shield values, but they're usually quite low on armor and a bit more stacked on their melee defense side of things. So shooting them to death is certainly a viable option. Oh wow, those Mython Lancers are going to go all the way, baby. Push through all 3 companies of the Heavy Goblin Archers. These guys are doubtless going to get so many kills right now. Tossing their javelins every which way, hacking down Goblin Archers with their right hand while they toss javelins with their left. Very, very effective sally here from, I believe this is Bobo. And he's managed to do a ton of damage to these archers. I think routing 2 of the 3 companies and basically getting a few hundred kills right there in that cavalry unit alone. An excellent sally there. Great tactical play on the part of Bobo. Let's see what's going on over on this side. Well, we see another sally. I think they broke through. It looks like they broke through, and I think the advisor mentioned something about that. This is going to be a little bit more of a traditional kind of choke point push, although the Misty Mountains, I'm sure, would do very well to bring up some of their missile units and to try and thin out the ranks of these 4 Lindon pikemen. Pushing from the front would be very, very costly, although it is worth mentioning that the Misty Mountains do have the numbers, while the Elven forces, of course, are comparatively lightly manned, shall we say, even though there are 3 Lindon armies present inside the Citadel. Oh man, what do we got over here? More units coming forward. Starling is not going to take that lying down. Some of those Heavy Goblin Archers came back from routing. A big infantry push here, although I'm not entirely sure what he intends to accomplish with this. There aren't really any siege equipment nearby. The gate is still up, only having taken 7% damage. It may be that he wants to make another push with his archers to try and deal some serious damage to the elves up there on the wall, and this time he's not going to be taken unawares by a single unit of cavalry. See that ballista doing its best. It's really mostly doing damage to the gatehouse, unfortunately. And other than the rams, I don't see a lot of siege towers, a lot of ladders and things like that. So there are fairly limited avenues of attack here for the goblins, which is really going to play into the hands of the elves. Again, that quality versus the quantity of the Misty Mountains in a choke point where there's nothing the Misty Mountains can do but funnel themselves into the teeth of an elven defense. That's not going to go well for the goblins in any way. What we got here? Oh yeah, this is not going to do a whole lot. The ballistas, I believe, have quite low damage against walls and against buildings in general, so this is not really an effective use of that ammunition. He might be trying to sneak a shot over the top of the battlements there, maybe skewer a few men, but that'll maybe be 1 in every 10 shots where he's able to do that. Ooh, a little bit of lag. Unsurprising on this kind of map, in this kind of scenario. It seems like an infantry fight is about to take place over here. So many of the goblins are getting ready to push their way into the gatehouse. You see the heavy goblin spears already put themselves in the shield wall. It's going to be especially useful for dealing with these Forlindon pikemen. However, Thorn and his allies are ready for this. Got Forlindon Marines backing up these Forlindon pikemen, so that's going to be a very small window of opportunity for those goblins to get in there before they take catastrophic damage from these elven javelin men. Pushing forward like this against a shield wall unit, only using the pikes though, it's a risky maneuver indeed. In 0.96.1, the heavy goblin spears actually have pretty decent morale values. I think they have about 12, so they're not going to be as easy to rout as some of the other Misty Mountains units like the infantry. Ooh, some Noldoran Guard joining the fray. I really want to get like a nice cheeky screenshot here. This would be a great place to do it. It is hard. Just got to get some sky in the background. Ooh, I like that. I really like that. That's going to be our new screenshot, guys. Yeah, a lot of damage being done here by these Forlindon pikemen. The elves rebuffing this first assault from the Misty Mountains under Starling, but keep in mind, is this Starling's forces? Yeah, I guess Starling is assaulting 2 different gatehouses simultaneously. Does he have 2 armies? How does that work? Oh, okay, one of them is Tundra's Fox. I thought maybe like someone changed their name to Starling, and I don't remember having seen that in the introduction. I was confused. Some high tier units coming in now. We've got the Black Rooks of the Mountain, looking very dirty indeed. A lot of mud and muck out here in CARN-DÜM. Don't worry, the weather effects will be changing very, very soon. Yeah, a lot of damage being done here by the Elves of Lindon, who have managed to hold on quite admirably to this first choke point. You can see more and more forces being pulled in. Forlindon archers escaping off the walls, using their pikemen brothers as cover. Really good timing on this. The Misty Mountains, if left unchecked, they will be able to push their way through here. You can already see one of the Black Rooks of the Mountain. He might just claim one of those elven lives as his own. Ooh, not that time. Noldoran Guard now forming up, getting ready to form the second line here as the Misty Mountains numbers are really starting to tell, especially with those heavy goblin spears pushing their way through the pikemen. That's going to be nasty indeed for the Elves of Lindon, who are especially vulnerable to these kinds of tactics. They are quite lightly armored, their mass is pretty low, and they rely pretty heavily, especially in siege defense, on their pike units. So it seems like the battle is turning around here as more elite Misty Mountain units come in. But damn, now we've got those nasty javelin volleys. That's certainly going to thin out some of these Black Rooks of the Mountain and turn this, what might have been a Misty Mountains minor victory, into a crushing defeat. Look at that. Oh, that is gorgeous. I don't think I've ever seen this many javelins tossed in at a single blob of units in any of the battles that I've covered over 30 Age Reforged. That's pretty damn cool. See some routing there, as of course you would. That's just withering fire of javelins. Although that is really just a drop in the bucket. If you look at the Misty Mountain reserves, we have a big fight ahead of us. And speaking of reserves, Lucky Asar's army has now arrived on scene, which is going to put a lot of pressure on the Elven defense over on what I would presume to be their right flank. This northernmost gatehouse here just got reinforced on the Misty Mountain side in a really big way. So this is going to be, I think, pretty tough for them to deal with. Speaking of this bridge, lot of skirmishing going on out here. Not really anything too eventful right now. Just the kind of standard fare that you'd expect. Meanwhile, in the center bridge, where Starling's main force is, the heavy goblin archers are back in position, being guarded by the heavy goblin spears. Not a lot of counterfire going into those archers out there. So it seems like for the time being, they were content to just let these Forlondon archers rather fire at them. And on that note, the Forlondon archers are actually out of ammunition. So all's quiet there on the that western kind of middle western gatehouse. They're all western facing. But over here at the southernmost gatehouse, Tundra's Fox is really coming at this gatehouse with a vengeance. He has suffered some pretty serious losses. If you take a look down here, it's a lot of dead orcs and comparatively few dead elves. But a second assault here kind of catches the elves of Linden at unawares. Now they are struggling to present a unified defense. Got some rangers, however, Wardens of Elastirion, who are going to stem the bleeding. Oh man, just every time they hit them, there's just so much blood spray that goes up. It actually drops my frame rate by like 10 frames. It's incredible. More and more of them just streaming in the seemingly endless tide of the hordes of the Misty Mountains. Ooh, from the front like this, these guys will stand up to it reasonably well. Oh, that's a lot of damage, though. This is exactly the kind of situation that Rangers were designed to be powerful in, however. In a siege like this, actually, I kind of like what they've done here. This is quite clever tactics. They've left that center line open, so that the Wardens of Elastirion can basically fire unopposed and unimpeded is the word I wanted, by the masses of their own troops. Ooh, someone's general just went down. One of Círdan's many clones was just killed. Not going to affect the elves of Linden too much, but in the late game, when it comes down to just handfuls of units fighting against each other for supremacy in the Citadel, that could be something that tells against the elves of Linden. Just so many good potential screenshots here. I'm just going to take a whole bunch. A lot of cheeky screenshots in this battle. Oh, those javelins. Look at that cloud of javelins. As the cycle begins anew, the Misty Mountains push in, and the formidable ranged options of the Elves of Linden make themselves felt in just a huge way. The skies darken as clouds of javelins and arrows pour into this Misty Mountain, this tendril of the Misty Mountains monster waiting outside the gates of CARN-DûM. More routing, but yet more troops push their way in, ready to pick up the figurative rifles of their comrades as they fall in battle against the elves. Let's see what's going on over here. Things are pretty quiet so far. More artillery, still trying to batter their way through the gates here. Nice couple of direct hits there. And the gatehouse is beginning to weaken, but I don't know if the ballistas are going to have the ammunition in order to truly muscle their way in. I think they're going to have to eventually fall back on their rams and things like that, which is probably what they should be doing. To be perfectly frank, the ballistas can be really useful once they get inside of the Citadel. Admittedly, there is a second layer that will allow the defenders to rain arrows on any artillery crew that comes in to get a better shot. So maybe that's why they want to use them in the first layer instead of saving them for later. But me personally, I would probably just use the numbers, go for the gatehouse with my rams, and try and save my ballista for a later date. But I can understand the reasoning behind wanting to use them in the early opening stages of the siege, just to try and poke some holes in the enemy's defenses. Still, all quiet there at the northern gatehouse. The central gatehouse, not a whole lot going on. But really, the party has begun in earnest at this southern gatehouse. That assault from the Misty Mountains has failed. So many dead Misty Mountains goblins here. But it's really just a drop in the bucket. Of course, they've still got more. Starling still hasn't even committed many of his forces to this fight. And Linden is... They have thinned out of the gatehouse, to say the least. There's not a ton of frontline troops here. There are some Forlondon Marines, and it seems like some of the Javelin units have run out of ammunition. There are still many Rangers to come, however, and that's probably going to be the biggest hurdle for the Misty Mountains to have to overcome. So it's about double the amount killed on the attacking side as is on the defenders, but still, a lot of battle yet before us. Thunderous Fox pushing his way through there with the heavy goblin infantry. Seems like they managed to destroy, for the most part, a unit of Noldoran Guard. Actually, we do have some ladders here, as halberds and goblin spears muscle their way onto the wall. They are going to be dangerously exposed to elven counterfire here. Although it is probably worth mentioning that many of the Rangers have expended a lot of their ammunition, and we are starting to see the Forlorn Dawn Marines run out of their javelins. So I think the worst, at least for this particular theater of the battle, has been weathered potentially by the Misty Mountains. Although these guys are out of ammunition, they still have ammo, and there's still some Wardens of Parliament and things like that. But they are using a lot of ammo for not a lot of gain up here as well. So it seems like maybe the defenders are being a bit frivolous with the ammunition that they do have. But we'll see if that has any implications for them later. Or consequences is the one I wanted. Consequences for the defenders later on in the battle. Let's take a quick look here at some of the reserves, just to give you an idea of the scope of the Misty Mountains forces and kind of the losses they've taken so far. We are starting to see a lot of their army kind of melt away. But still, there's quite a lot to come here. A lot of support units from Thunderous Fox have to come as well. Those Goblin Archers are going to be extremely effective against the lightly armored Lindon forces. Starling now shifting over some of his Goblins to help his ally out a little bit. Meanwhile, he's got this central gate pretty well locked down for the time being, so there's going to be no more Elven sallies coming out of there. I think where we'll see the game won or lost is going to be over here at this northern gatehouse, which previously, hitherto, has been very quiet. But now that there are two armies of the Misty Mountains here, I think that the assault can finally get underway, and it's certainly going to be, have a lot more endurance and oomph to it than Thunderous Fox's solo, mostly assault with a little bit of limited help from Starling. But the Misty Mountains team, I think, is going to live or die by the progress that they make at this northern gatehouse. Let's shift back to the south. More Misty Mountains have returned, but they are in far fewer numbers than they were previously. Although, that being said, some of these Black Ruriks have managed to bust their way through the lines, catching some of these Forlorn Archers that are unaware. They might be able to get in there against these Forlorn Marines if they move quickly and try and silence them. Otherwise, I think the Forlorn Marines might be able to get a decent volley off that would pretty well annihilate that unit of Black Ruriks of the Mountain. And Thunderous Fox has suffered grievous losses so far. I don't know if he can continue to compete. Let's go ahead and kick it into full speed, though. Got some Wardens of pardon me, by the way. Got some Wardens of Elastirian here. Oh, I thought they were out of ammunition, but they do still have some ammo left. Heavy Goblin Spears have muscled their way through the center, straight into a second line of pikes. This is a formidable Lindon defense indeed. And a very serious commitment on the part of the Misty Mountains. And this is an RP battle, so these battles do have consequences. Oh, pardon me. I just had to clear my throat. I probably didn't want to hear that. But yeah, as I was saying, this is going to have some consequences for the Misty Mountains' capacity to wage war in the RP. So every loss is going to be one that is dearly felt, which, even for a faction like Misty, who kind of relies on their numbers and, you know, taking acceptable losses if they gain the amount of square footage per goblin life lost that ultimately leads to a victory. Yeah, that's going to really hurt for them. That's a lot of damage being done to these Fearmongers. Oh, nasty. And the White Uruk Fearmongers are pretty well going to rout right there. Orc Riders trying to muscle their way in, but Lindon just has this gatehouse locked down so tightly that other company of White Uruk Fearmongers are going to find themselves isolated. Another wave of Misty Mountains units coming in. A lot of Goblin Archers here. Probably going to end up firing over the gatehouse. I think there's still some infantry left over. At least enough for another solid push. Assuming that they can wear down the Lindon forces and get them to use up some of their missiles. That's really the big thing here. The Lindon infantry on their own, unaided, I don't know if they would have been able to win against the mass push that Thunderous Fox and Starling were trying to get underway with their large amount of Misty Mountains infantry. It's really been the ranged forces so far, the Wardens of Elastirian, the huge number of javelins at their disposal that have made this defense possible. So we got in the center here. Heavy Goblin Archers, I think, might be trying to fire over the walls. Nothing really interesting happening there. Over here, though, we now have another ram at the gate. Heavy Goblin Spears have arrived at the gatehouse. 43 damage, 43% damage already done to this gatehouse. So they will be able to move in quite quickly. And doesn't seem like the Lindon forces are quite as prepared. They're certainly taking a different tack when it comes to defending this gatehouse. I think what we're going to see is something similar to the defense on the western side, where the pikemen will come in from the side, engage those infantry, and then maybe we'll have a lot of these missile units, like the Forlorn Marines, for example, who use this open channel to deal some serious damage to their enemies, who are really fighting back to back, trying to push their way through the gatehouse. Now the Misty Mountains have another avenue of attack into the city, and I think this one might be a little bit more coordinated. I did see some ladders there being brought up by the Heavy Goblin Infantry. If they can get ladders on either side of the gatehouse and push through simultaneously with two armies, this could be the decisive moment for the Misty Mountains that gets them inside the Citadel, because so far they have not had a ton of luck, and the Elves of Lindon have been very proactive and just very... Ooh, wow. Big lag spike there. Sorry about that, guys. The Elves of Lindon have been very proactive and just very efficient in their use of their forces. For the most part. There's some weirdness with the missile units, but... These Black Heroics still holding on. Very impressive stand by them there. Managed to do a fair amount of damage to those Elven units, but really, Tundra's Fox's army has certainly seen better days. The once proud and numerous forces of the Misty Mountains have been pretty heavily reduced, and I think it would have been wiser for Tundra's Fox to lead with this approach here. To lead with his archers and to try and thin out the numbers before he charged in so boldly against the entrenched Lindon forces. It definitely would have been a better use of his resources, I think. That being said, the Goblins are doing a fair amount of damage to these lined up units in the back here. There's not a whole lot that the Lindon forces can do to avoid getting shot here. There's limited space within the Citadel, and they are going to be bunched up in one way or another. So the mass volley fire is starting to take a toll. And it's actually fairly accurate too, if you consider the arc that the troops outside the wall have to deal with. But so far things have really slowed down a little bit here. There might be another push coming in from Tundra's Fox, but I think at this point it would be wise for him to try and stay back. Oh wow, we have a big push over here. Let's go ahead and slow things down just so we don't miss anything else. Starling has come in like a wrecking ball and just bisected this Elven defense. His losses were grievous if you look at the grounds, but it really seems like he managed to shatter Thorn's defense and the Lindon defense generally on this central gate like a rotten twig. Very, very good push tactics here, and that is potentially going to isolate the two sides of the Lindon defense. That's going to be pretty significant. There are a lot of Lindon forces over here, but now they are going to be cut off by Starling's army as they push farther in here and make it even as far as the second layer of the defense, which is pretty well entirely undefended at this point. The Lindon forces are concentrated solely on that first layer, so this is a really big gain for the Misty Mountains, I think. That being said, they do have some tricks up their sleeve. They have a couple units of Wardens of Elastirion here under Bobo that could be used to do a serious amount of damage to these Misty Mountain forces, but I think Starling is well poised to capitalize on this gain. He's got enough numbers in here to overwhelm the meager defenses. Oh my goodness. Look at the damage. The fairly meager defenses here, the meager front line of the Lindon forces. Just one unit of Rangers really up there that are unengaged, that are trying to stem the bleeding here. But I don't think it's going to be enough. And then over here at the same time, this Misty Mountains force has pushed in a lot of routing, and this is a very well entrenched and well supplied in terms of manpower, elf power, Lindon army. But that central gate falling so quickly, that's just such a big deal. The Elves of Lindon do have an option to try and circumvent the Misty Mountain forces, but they don't seem to be capitalizing on that right now. And of course, there are still a fair amount of forces out here. And yeah, this is a really good move here on the part of Tundra's Fox. I think he recognizes the danger and sees how weak. Actually, this is Bobo. Sorry, attacking Tundra's Fox. He sees how weak Tundra's Fox's army is, and he's going to try and scatter these Goblin archers and deal the death blow to the Misty Mountain forces over here if he can, and that's going to allow him to move some of his forces elsewhere into the battle. We can see him already beginning to do that. Some Wardens of Elastirion moving forward here to support a lot of Thorn's army as they try to regain control of this central gate. But I don't know if it's going to be enough. So much of that Misty Mountains force has managed to get through here. Though I say that, they are looking far less numerous than they were moments ago. 50% to 40, so things have evened out. And 40% for the Elven defenders, of all things, who are already outnumbered, simply by being who they are. That's a pretty big deal. And now Bobo's Wardens of Elastirion, certainly not out of ammunition at this point, but they are being overwhelmed. There's some Warg Riders in here as well from Tundra's Fox. We actually saw them moving across to the central bridge a little bit earlier, and they're being used to great effect. These Wardens of Elastirion, I don't think will be able to get inside the final gatehouse in order to prevent themselves from being overrun. So a big defeat there in the center for the Elves of Lindon. Very, very costly indeed. Even if they do end up taking back this defense, I mean, there's still a lot that they have to deal with. Although it is worth mentioning that the Misty Mountains forces on this end are kind of on their last legs, but I think that the damage has kind of been done at this point. Forlorn Marines going up against the White Uruk Fearmongers. The spears don't have the same range as those two-handed polearms, so the White Uruk Fearmongers, I think, are going to have no problem butchering their way through. This offensive, however, it's certainly seen better days. Although, that's so nasty. Really good positioning there from Bobo. Again, those range. I want to see how many kills the Rangers get. I hope that we are able to see that. It's certainly going to be in the thousands for certain units. But this offense at the gatehouse has been blunted. So many thousands of orcs have died, and you can really see the difference in numbers. But it is worth mentioning. So it looks like we had some Mountain Orc Berserkers here as well. Didn't see them. They're kind of hidden units. But it is worth mentioning up here in the gatehouse that they are being pressed quite hard, and more reinforcements in the form of Black Heroics of the Mountain and those Mountain Orc Berserkers are going to be able to come down here and get into the rear of some of these encircling units. So the Forlorn Pikemen in particular are going to suffer disproportionate casualties that maybe another unit wouldn't. Because of their lack of shield, their lack of armor generally, they really rely on their melee defense mostly to keep themselves alive, and the range, of course, that their pikes afford them from the front. See what we got going on over here. Misty Mountains have broken through. I think this is going to be decisive for the Elves of Lindon. It's getting closer, and given the disparity between the numbers to begin with, I don't know if the Elves of Lindon can pull this back. Maybe. If they can retake the central gate, defeat Starling and defeat Tundra's Fox, and bring all their forces to bear against those two Misty Mountain armies before they have a solid foothold, maybe that will be the decisive factor. But of course there are some pretty elite units still yet to come. A couple units here. One from Starling, one from Tundra's Fox of White Uruk Fearmongers. There's a ton of archers here as well, which can be, as I've mentioned several times now, a really big pain in the butt for Lindon forces. And then of course there's a couple units of crossbows as well. Then out here in front of this gate, still more Misty Mountains infantry. Still more of them pouring in there, occupying these Lindon forces. It's just a bloody massacre on this first level of defense here in CARN-DûM. White Uruk Fearmongers from Lucky Hussar have managed to get themselves a decent foothold. They're kind of out of position at this point. If they move forward, they will be massacred. If they try and retreat, they're going to take heavy losses from the Elven missile units now that they have regained that central gatehouse. And if he brings them back here, well, maybe he'll get some use out of them. But still, he'll definitely take losses in transit. What do we got? Oh, Forlorn Marines just being tossed up and down here by that shield wall push from those heavy goblin spears. And this is why this mechanic exists. I know that, I'm going to slow down here. I know that shield wall and pushing units generally have been pretty controversial, but this is why they exist. I mean, take a look. Yeah, some of those Elven units are getting tossed around, but take a look at what happened over here. What happened? Remember what happened to this Misty Mountains army, and that's the reason that kind of thing exists. One, it keeps gameplay interesting because then it's not just an endless grind in sieges, and two, factions like the Misty Mountains need to be able to do this, otherwise the Elves will simply destroy them with their superior skill and quality. So surprisingly enough, the Misty Mountains have managed to bust out of that encirclement, which is not something that I expected, and the Elven forces defending this first layer have taken pretty serious losses, although I don't know if they're at that critical stage yet. Still fairly even, and getting more even as time goes by, which is only going to favor the Misty Mountains with their numbers even more as time goes on. But the Elves, they're not out of this fight yet. Damn, what a battlefield. Take a look at that. Just carpets upon it's just a carpet of bodies. I haven't seen like this many dead units in one place since I would run like stress tests on my old computer to see what they could handle with like 8 armies of 5,000 apiece. Like, this is nuts. And the Elves of Linden have... It's really anybody's game at this point. They could potentially defeat what remains of the Misty Mountains here, but with the reinforcements that are moving in, I think that this defense over here will soon find itself encircled and ultimately crushed. Let's see if the Elves have anything in reserve. Not really. And there's actually Warg Riders up here that are going to be a complete pain for them, having destroyed that unit of Wardens of Elastirian under Bobo. Now they're going to come in from the rear. It's actually Tundra's Fox's Warg Rider unit, which has gotten so much value out of. Really good moves on the part of Tundra's Fox so far, and the support that he's given Starling's Assault on that central gate has really paid off. Managed to do damage to 2 really important units of Wardens of Elastirian, which could potentially turn the game around. Could have, I should say. Now he's going to come in and help his allies complete the encirclement of the Elven forces. So really nice way to play the field there. Heavy Goblin Spears engaged with what remains of that Lindon defense. Some 4 Lindon archers being drawn back. And it looks like the central gatehouse has been retaken at great loss, although, ooh, the ballista has actually been brought to bear here. And you can see some routing units, some like 67 or something that I see routing 4 Lindon Marines. Yeah, that's not insignificant, although I think they just reformed. But kudos to the Misty Mountains. Like, look at this stand. As the Elves of Linden were sallying out to try and deal the death blow, they had already formed up. Again, Tundra's Fox and I think Starling as well were over here together, and they've set up a killing zone basically that the Elves of Linden will not be able to push their way out of. And look at that. The attackers have really started to pull this back. It's they're doing a great job so far. 71% kill for the defenders, but only 67 for the attackers. Let's see what we got going on over here. Mython Lancers getting in there to try and do something to the Warg Riders, but honestly, the Mython Lancers don't really have much of a chance here. They are sort of taking down some of these Warg Riders, but there's just not enough of them. What we got going on up here? Still some... Actually, there's some 4 Lindon pikemen up here that are holding this gatehouse, holding the door. More Misty Mountains forces just muscling their way in. Seemingly endless tides. They've suffered thousands upon thousands of casualties at this point. But I think this is where the defenders are gonna start to fall apart. They were so strong in the early game, especially on that southern gate, but now that things like this are happening, like the Warg Riders have penetrated their defenses, there's just no united front anymore. It's just pockets of men doing their best to try and hold back the attackers, but the attackers really have the advantage in this kind of chaotic situation. And now these forces here under Thorn and Bobo trying to push their way uphill through heavy Goblin Spears, but of course there is still a Goblin force in behind them, another unit of Goblin Spears, and a lot of Bowmen and Archer units as well. So this central force here is going to find itself very, very quickly surrounded, and if it's not destroyed by the infantry, they will be shot to pieces by the advancing Misty Mountains forces. Wonder what's going on over here. Still, these pikemen are occupied. Yeah, the Misty Mountains have chosen their time well to engage the remaining forces at this gatehouse. With the troops that they have remaining, they probably won't win here. In fact, it's very unlikely that they will win here. But the Elves of Linden are being held in place, and more valuable reinforcements that could be used elsewhere are being diverted to deal with what is simply a diversionary attack. Here about the gatehouse, it looks like Linden is trying to put up some small defense to delay the inevitable, but I don't think it's going to matter. The Elves here are going to be crushed as they were crushed over on this side as well. But let's just take a moment and appreciate the magnitude of this struggle here. Just thousands dead upon either side. It was really a bloody struggle. White Fearmongers advancing victoriously towards the few remaining pockets of Elven resistance. Got some routing Forlondon archers here. Forlondon Marines still at the gatehouse, heroically trying to hold the line. I don't think it's going to matter. Yeah, I think we're going to see an Elven, a narrow, but still an Elven defeat here. And a lot of that comes down to... oops, sorry about that, guys. A lot of it comes down to, I think, the way that the Misty Mountains were able to kind of divide and conquer a little bit. The Elves, in the beginning, started out so strong because they were able to present this united front. They could keep things in order, keep the Misty Mountains from using their superior numbers. But once the Misty Mountains began to break through, it devolved into chaos, into small bands of warriors fighting here and there rather than a united front. And then, of course, with the diversionary tactics of Starling and Thorn at that southern gate, they managed to turn the startling defeat that they suffered there into ultimately a minor victory that further stretched the Elven lines even thinner than they already were. So really good job here on the part of the attackers, although of course it came at a terrible cost. Ooh, I can't tell who's routing. Look at this one brave soul charging in there. I hope he got to kill somebody at least. Now he's being like triple teamed and gets cut down by some vicious Mountain Orc berserkers. And the encirclement of this this central Elven force is nearly complete. And I think the only troops really remaining are the ones that you're seeing right over there, and maybe some forces about the gatehouse there in the process of dealing with Misty Mountains. But yeah, they're gonna have to pull out of there. Goblin archers, we'll shoot them to death. Ooh, those Forlondon pikemen are getting shot to bits. There are 17 Oldoran Guard here that would certainly be welcome elsewhere on the line. Yeah, Linda really needs to just get as much as they can in here and try and stop themselves from being overwhelmed. Actually, really clever use of terrain here. Some of the Goblin Archers under Tundra's Fox going to use the walls against the Elves of Linden to try and circumvent this choke point that they've set up here. So, again, I have to say I'm really impressed with how the attackers played this. This is a fight that could very easily have been lost, and lost very, very badly. But there was great teamwork, great siege tactics, and ultimately they pulled out what I think is a respectable victory. Oh, damn. Yeah, a screenshot of that. Maybe that'll be our thumbnail. I think that's awesome. Just look at this central gate here. This is probably one of the bloodiest parts of the battle, I would think. Maybe even more so than the huge pile of bodies over there. Just the central gatehouse, so many dead goblins all the way up the hill, so many dead elves as well. What do we have up here? Oh, still some Wardens of Elastirion. But again, that unit from Tundra's Fox, this unit of warg heroes coming down in the rear against the Wardens of Elastirion, completely circumventing their massive melee defense pools. That is so nasty for them. That's going to be night for the Wardens of Elastirion. One more charge downhill from those wargs. I think it's going to be enough to see them off. Although, there's a Goblin General in there. Maybe they'll get a last-minute General kill. Ooh, they are going to turn around this time. I don't think we'll see quite as many die. Yeah, you can really see the difference that that melee defense makes. It does help units block charges. Just a fun little fact there. And you really see that principle in action on that last Misty Mountains charge. Oh, that's nasty. 77 to 96. And the Misty Mountains are inside the walls. The Elves of Linden are almost no more at this point. Look at this. Look at the destruction. This was a beautiful siege. Thank you so much to Thorn for sending this to me. Another unit of Rangers. Again, the last one to die. Bobo seems to have nearly endless supplies of these white armored ninjas. We got here some routing Forlondon Marines. Probably going to get cut down by those Warg Riders. Well, we got some Wardens of Harlandon over here. Spear Cavalry, they might do okay against the Wargs. If these Forlondon Marines will come back from routing, though, they could destroy that Warg unit finally. The last stand of the Wardens of Elastirion. They are not long for this world. And I think there's another unit down here. Well, the Noldoran Guard. The remnants of the Noldoran Guard have joined the fray. The fear effect from those fearmongers, though, and the AP that these the Berserkers and the Fearmongers bring to bear against heavily armored units, I don't think they'll be able to stand and fight for too long. Most of their fellows have been slain, so they're certainly losing the heart to fight. And there you go. A little bit of breaking there from the Eldoran Guard, and I think that just leaves the Wardens of Elos Tyrian. They are locked morale, so they're not going to go anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and fast forward it just a little bit. The final stand of these Elven units, 99% to 78. Although, to be fair, if you just look at the ground, there's a lot of dead goblins here. This was a really good fight. See if those Wardens manage to get a few more kills. Nope, one of them just dropped. That beautiful white armor sullied by the muck and the blood. I think this is the last Ranger left alive inside the Citadel of CARN-DûM. Something that the Elves of Lindon no doubt paid very dearly to acquire in the first place. And that's going to be it, I believe. Yeah, we're down to the final few frames here. Maybe there's about 1,000 or so left. I'll try and locate this last pocket of resistance. Oh, what do you know? There are still some Wardens of Elos Tyrian still kicking. Ooh, that single shot. Beautiful. Close range execution? Come on, do it. Nope. See if this guy gets one. It'd be really funny if shoots this guy directly in front of him. I think maybe he got somebody. Yeah, a lot of melee defense on these units, though, so they can actually stand up to this for quite a while. Oh, he'll be getting back up. And there we go. This should be the last Warden left inside. And he has now fallen. You know, I say that, but the replay's not over yet. There's got to be something that they've got left. Maybe some hidden units up there. Oh, just some small companies that fully on Marines. It's odd that the defenders held nothing back on that first level. Especially once it started to turn against them. It is a bit strange to me that they did not pull back to the second level or even to this third and final level, although of course the Goblins had so many missile units that it might not have really been that significant anyway. It might have ended up being a pretty vain gesture. So I think we're going to see a sally here from the fully on Marines. Mostly, it's awesome, and you can certainly roleplay this as them being very courageous and giving their lives valiantly. But I think this is mostly a matter of respect for their enemies, just so they don't have to come all the way up here. There you go. Those couple units actually just end up routing. Now they're going to get run down by those wargs. Really close defeat. Just look at the damage of those. I thought that there was more than one Elven army. I didn't realize it was 2v4. I thought there was actually 3 of them. Oh, that's my bad, guys. But still, look at that. Look at the damage that Bobo did. 6,000, 6,400 nearly orcs slain by his hand, and 3,000 killed by Thorn. Thorn did not do nearly as well as his ally, unfortunately, but I think that comes down a lot to the composition. There's a lot of Rangers there, and that really bumped up Bobo's kill count in a huge way. But maybe it might have been wiser to bring some extra infantry, because that really seemed to be where they were lacking, especially after those first few exchanges where the Misty Mountains were repulsed, I think 2, even 3 times. That's when you really started to see the wear and tear in the Elven forces, and their lack of infantry, I think, ended up being pretty significant there. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let's take a look at the kills here. A lot of... Oh, we do get to see it from the Elven perspective. Wonderful. 1,200 on a unit of Wardens of Elos Tyrian, 1,000 on another, and then I say a meager 300, but still, it's pretty significant, done by the other units. And then Thorn's forces are pretty well... The spread is quite nice across the way, although one unit of fully on Pikes getting 59 kills against the Misty Mountains is a little bit unfortunate. So many archers, though. So many archers, a lot of pikemen, a lot of marines. Actually, that's most of Thorn's army, in fact, is fallen on archers, pikemen, and marines. And then Bobo's army is probably a more high-tier version, for an Eldoran Guard, and all those Wardens of Elos Tyrian and Lancers and things like that. So that was a really excellent battle. I hope you guys enjoyed. It's been a while since we had a siege battle. And yeah, I'll see you next time.